All right, welcome in everyone to our Health Disparities Part 2, Bridging the Gap. Health Disparities Student Engagement Activities in Action, presented to you by yours truly, myself, Derek Reed, Senior Program Specialist here with the Los Angeles County Office of Education's Tobacco Use Prevention Education Unit. Thank you all who had the chance to participate in our pulse check activity. I hope that everyone's forecast actually ends up being quite sunny and beautiful. There are going to be some live polls throughout today's presentation. So if you could either do one of two things. One, there is a link that'll be placed in the chat for you to get to our live polling screen via your laptop or desktop. Or also you can take out your cell phone and scan the QR code right there on the left. Once you have arrived at our my polling site, it's going to say, hey, do you want to register? You can say skip for now. Then you're going to get another screen that's going to say, welcome to Derek Reed, 891. Introduce yourself. Please provide your first name or a webinar appropriate name that you would like to be referred to as we are going through today's slides and polls. Give you all just a few moments to take care of that. And then we will have a practice. And don't worry, if you haven't had a chance to go ahead and get your name and everything settled into the Polling Everywhere system, each time there is a poll, once again, that QR code and that link will be displayed for you to go ahead and participate in all of today's live polls. All right, I'll give you about a couple more seconds. And in 5, 4, 3, 2, and here we go. Let's do a practice poll. And the question we are asking everyone is, what is one key takeaway you hope to gain from today's webinar? And we will hang tight for some responses from you all out in the virtual space today. Let me make sure all of our mics are on mute. All right, activities. We want them to be usable, that you can take back to site. Thank you. Yes, I love that. Holding for just a few more. Oh, here we go. Now they're coming in. All right. Usable. You want to share with the team? Absolutely. Better activities. Okay. Examples. All right. We want to serve the community. A better understanding. Absolutely. Perfect. So you are all well versed in our live polls. So you're all going to be spectacular, as we will do some more live polls throughout today's webinar. As you can see, the words and statements are still coming in. And just by looking at those, I think you're all going to walk away with some great gems after today's webinar. And let's take a look at our agenda flow outcomes. So today we already had our welcome and connection. We're going to do a quick review of the health disparities part 1. We're going to talk about how do we identify a health disparity population? And then what are the areas of focus for health disparity populations? And then general health disparity activities that you can use, and also some really interesting and outside the box health disparity activities as well. Then we're going to wrap it up with some resources. And of course, I'll finish. All right, skipped ahead just there. It's quick housekeeping. Make sure that your mics are on mute. Feel free to use that chat throughout the day's webinar so that you can add any comments or share any questions you may have throughout the webinar. Our team is taking a look and monitoring the chat throughout today's presentation. and they'll be assisting with providing you some responses if I'm not able to get to you. And then stay engaged, right? We want to stay present. And of course, this webinar is going to be recorded, and you're going to get a copy of this presentation and a bunch of goodies to also use back at your school sites. So before we get started today, we want to take a moment to honor the ceremonial use of tobacco. So tobacco has a central role in many indigenous communities. Tobacco can be used for religious or ceremonial purposes, and often called sacred tobacco. And it's used by American Indian communities for prayer, healing, and ceremony. Commercial tobacco, on the other hand, is mass produced, it's sold for profit, and contains a lot of added chemicals, as I'm sure many of you are already very well aware of. And so, just so we're all on the same page, nicotine, right, is the primary addictive substance in commercial tobacco. So our mindset for today's webinar, we are focused on progress, right? We don't need to be perfect today. So let's get curious. We're going to explore and we're going to investigate together in this very safe webinar space, because really every day is a chance to practice. And this is us here at LACO Meet, our team. We have Mark Hernandez on the call as well with us here. We have myself. I introduced myself already. We have Linnell Lujan, our Senior Program Specialist with the Department of Justice Grant, Kira McNeely, our Senior Program Activity Specialist, and Monica Gaxiola, our Accounting Technician. So let's do just a quick review of Health Disparities Part 1, Understanding Health Disparities in Action. And this webinar took place on August 27, 2024. And if you did not attend, it is totally not a problem. You will still be able to follow along just fine. So here are some key takeaways from Part 1. So the definition of health equity is achieving the highest level of health for all people by addressing avoidable inequalities. Health inequality is an unjust, avoidable differences in health. And then what are those social determinants of health, which are factors like economic stability, education, neighborhood and built environment, I said that already, excuse me, and education and access and quality. So intersectionality of identity. So we need to just take a moment about the understanding of intersectionality, which basically is just the complex and cumulative, didn't I say that? Cumulative, there it is. Here we are at the 3 o'clock hour. Way different forms of discrimination, race, gender, sexuality, etc., and how those can overlap. And then the impact on health outcomes, which are how intersecting identities shape health experiences and access to care. And the link between tobacco use and disparities. Specific communities, especially marginalized groups, show higher rates of tobacco use. And then factors driving the disparities could be stress, targeted marketing by tobacco companies, and limited access to cessation resources. Now let's get into the school portion of this, right? So schools as a key intervention point. So disparities within educational settings that affect student health, including tobacco use. And then the importance of addressing disparities early, right? And to foster better outcomes in both education and health within our schools. And in a nutshell, health disparity student groups in our tobacco use prevention education world is defined as students who are prone to a higher usage of tobacco products due to their social determinants of health. Let's quickly just take a moment to revisit the identified student groups from part one. So the California Department of Education has come up with these particular groups: African American and Black, American Indian and Alaska Native, Latino Hispanic, Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander, students identifying as gay, lesbian, transgender, or queer questioning, foster youth, students experiencing homelessness, students enrolled in non-traditional schools, like say a continuation site, independent studies, juvenile detention schools, etc. You have your rural communities and low-income communities. And then, of course, this was really just a brief overview of part one of our two-part health disparities series. So I really do, if you have a chance, my colleague Linnell Lujan did an amazing job and dives way deeper into the understanding of health disparities in education. So if you would like to revisit or visit for the first time, the part one recording and PDF of the slides will be linked here for you. All right, so we have arrived, right? Finally, part two, the moment you have all been waiting for: health disparities, bridging the gap, health disparities, student engagement activities in action. And we're really going to start today with that call to action, because that's kind of where I think we pick up from part one. And so now that we have identified the health disparity student groups or groups, it's time to really kind of hone in and identify the health disparity group or groups that need further support within your school district or community. So how can we identify health disparity groups within a school community to focus your efforts on? In the chat, type some responses for me. So for example, we may look at the California Healthy Kids Survey. So what are some other examples that you might use to help you identify your health disparity group? Anybody out there to identify? Yes, absolutely. Thank you. All right, here they come. Infraction data. Yes, the California Healthy Kids Survey, Youth Truth, school climate surveys. Absolutely. These are all great responses. Thank you for them. I appreciate it. Let's take another quick poll. So on your devices or on that same window you have open, on a scale of 1 to 5, how challenging is it for you currently to identify your health disparity population within your school or community? 1 representing not difficult, I can do this, no problem, or 5, this is really hard and I need some help. And we will wait just a moment for those responses to come in. Oh, here we go. We got some 2 2s. Couple, oh, a lot of 2s there. We got the 3s are creeping in. Now they went back down. Okay. Perfect. That's good to know. So a lot of you in the space so far kind of got your health disparity group already lined up. You know where you want, who you want, or who you want to focus on. And so that kind of will help me guide some of the rest of today's presentation. Perfect. So now that we've had a chance to sort of sample the virtual space, let's revisit our purpose, right? And we're really here today to try to bridge the disparities between our general population of students and our health disparity groups within either our school or our community. And I like to think of this also sort of as your, you can think of this in terms of maybe your MTSS, your multi-tiered systems of support, or your positive behavior interventions and support as sort of these tiered services, right, that can also be provided and layered in throughout many of the activities that a lot of you I know are already doing. So here's some more examples of ways that you can hone in on locating and identifying your health disparity populations. Many of you placed some of these in the chat, but just give you a moment to mention. I want to mention a couple that weren't said, which are things like focus groups and key informant interviews. So with the data and insights in place and health disparity groups already identified, what do we do now? And I'm going to tell. So my work here currently a lot here in LACO is really focused on the tobacco use prevention education grant for the tier 2, which consists of these 6 grant components you see in front of you right now. And I think why I placed this image in front of you is because it really helps us to visually see where we can support our health disparity populations once we have them selected. So for the purposes of this webinar, we will focus on student services, family community engagement, and staff professional development, which you can see they're all located on the left. Oh, we already got some answers. Perfect. So what are some steps you have adopted to reach your health disparity populations? I can give you some examples while you're typing some in. Many of you are probably already doing a bunch of them. For example, yes, absolutely. Reviewing student data, use of data and attending webinars on the subject, focus groups, creating inclusive and culturally relevant programming, tailored messaging and services, use of data and attending family engagement initiatives, consistent communication channels, designing safe spaces. Maybe you have some peer-to-peer supports in place. So let's talk about health disparity in those areas of focus, and we're going to dive deeper into each one of them. So youth development, cessation, and family engagement. But I also think there's another group that we kind of got to keep in mind while we are supporting in these 3 different capacities. And that group is, of course, our staff, right? So we should be training our staff and also just including them and making them aware of the health disparity group, possibly that you are trying to focus on. And I honestly think a lot of times your staff is where many of the great ideas around this work can come from, right? And so professional development will also assist us in securing and recruiting, right, the members that you want to be a part of this health disparity work. And let's talk about recruitment. So here are some other ideas to involve or approach other staff members to get them involved with your health disparity work. These could be your family and community liaison, your McKinney-Vento liaison. You got your counselors, your teachers. Many of you out there are utilizing your interns, which I think is amazing. Are there any other groups that I did not mention that you might enter into the chat that could also be involved with this work? Any other community partners, community-based organizations? So once you have your team in place, this is a really quick activity that you can do with your health disparities group. And you will also get a link in this resource as well, just a quick roadmap. You will identify your health disparity group. What is that focus area you want to work on? Is it youth development, cessation promotion, family engagement? And then we're going to chart this all out on some paper and talk about what that health disparity group is. What is that specific activity description and that focus area? And then how do you plan to engage those students and those families? And who else do we need, right, to make this activity actually come to life? So we're thinking about who else do we bring to the table? So strategies to reach students and families in health disparity groups, right? We definitely want to be thinking about recruitment from diverse student groups, encouraging involvement from a broad range of students to reflect the campus community. We want to engage in all of our campus clubs, right? We really want to touch base with our GSAs, our NAMI clubs, our Friday Night Live our environmental clubs, any clubs that you may have on your campuses. We're partnering with our different subjects and classes and electives that we have on our campus. We're focusing on that link between mental health and tobacco usage. And then we want to offer very inclusive materials. And we want to make sure and ensure that our materials reflect the diverse student identities and situations. Also thinking about our, for example, our pregnant and parenting teens. And then of course, we've got to translate these materials into all of the available appropriate languages for your school and community. And last, establish that space for our students, a wellness space, right? And making those cessation materials available in that wellness space, in the counseling office, and in those common and frequented areas by your students. So let's dive into youth development briefly. Youth development activities or strategies can be broken up into 4 categories. You've got peer education. This is promoting, students promote tobacco use prevention among their peers through, say, like a school-wide, online, or in community activities or events. You have advocacy. Students are going to now engage in community or online projects that promote change in tobacco policy, including, let's say, a smoking ban or community collaborations, or maybe they produce some counter advertisements, to take on big tobacco. You got service learning projects you can do. This is where students will plan and implement some hands-on learning projects that promote tobacco-free living. Let's say maybe including tobacco waste cleanups or a youth development or leadership groups. And then you have media literacy, where students will produce media to counter the influence of tobacco industry, including, say, things like PSAs or a social media challenge or any other type of designs. So in a moment, we're going to show you how easy it can be to layer in this health disparity component into some of the activities that you're probably already doing. So what you're looking at now is really just some general activities that many of you do in and around tobacco use prevention education on your campuses. And I just want to keep in mind, remind you all that a lot of your activities can be led in different ways. Those being led by either your school staff, your teachers, or your students, or of course, any community partnerships you've built up as well. So let's get into cessation. So when it comes to cessation, we're really looking for those student-friendly materials, and we want to make sure that this is a broad promotion through multiple channels. So we want to present this information at all of our school events, our assemblies. We're using flyers, we're using newsletters, and we are putting posters all around our campuses. And then, of course, I know everyone's out there using social media platforms because we want to raise awareness. We've got to engage our students in creating their own media, their own peer-led videos and posters. And as I mentioned before, we're providing student-friendly materials. They're clear, they're simple. We've got QR codes, and they're always ensuring that they're culturally responsive and age appropriate. And then how do we integrate cessation into our existing activities? Embedding cessation into your health education or into your prevention curriculum, incorporating this into, say, maybe your youth leadership programs or a peer-led activities that you have going on. And then definitely connect with counseling services, for student intervention, right? Because yes, you're giving a student an intervention, but are we coupling it with also cessation resources if that student is seriously interested or thinking about quitting these products? Family and community engagement. So these are just recommendations, right? But we highly recommend that you are disseminating family resources quarterly. You're holding a school-wide anti-tobacco family outreach activity, at least one annually. And then we've got some family workshops going on, right? Like maybe you put on a family workshop about talking to teens about vaping, or hosting a session on mental health and substance use prevention. And then, of course, you could do maybe an offer a skills building workshop or a digital literacy workshop with your families and your communities. Or maybe there's some apps that you want to share with your families and communities, and teach those parents how to use those apps and monitor perhaps maybe some of their child's activity on their cell phones. We're going to touch on staff professional development for just a moment. And I just want to ask you all a quick question. In what ways are you providing professional development for all staff? And this goes for your certificated and your classified, right? Not just TUPE personnel, if you're TUPE grant funded, or how are you also providing professional development and to advance your health disparity initiatives in this particular school year? And you can do so by making sure that you are uh, bridging out these PDs for all staff, right? Your aides, your office staff, your custodians. You want to integrate health disparities and TUPE topics into your regular PD days. And then provide role-specific training, right? We can do things like, say, train teachers on incorporating cessation resources into their classrooms, or perhaps equip classified staff with tools to identify students in need and connect them with the resources that we have on our campuses. And then, of course, we got to train up our administrators, our leadership trainings, and on supporting our school-wide wellness initiatives, and back it all up with data. So how do we become more intentional with our cessation, youth development activities, and family and community engagement? And how do we begin to include and layer in this health disparity component? And when I talk about this, I like to think of this as adding in sort of like the salt and the pepper, right, to my activities, because not just because I'm a lover of food, but it's because it will definitely make your general activities that much better. Yum. All right, so let's go back to that slide from earlier where we had some general examples of activities that you can do, right? And then you see juxtaposed over there on the right, you have your health disparity population list. Many of you already told us that you've got your health disparity population, you know who you want to work with, and you're trying to figure out what are those activities I can do. And so here are the general ones that you're already doing for some of your school sites. Let's break one down. So for this particular exercise, we're going to take a look at holding a Red Ribbon Week, or say maybe a World No Tobacco Day mental health awareness event, and then layering in our students who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer questioning. So what does that look like? How do we do that, right? And so here we go. So let's say you're having Red Ribbon Week, but you're going to layer in and host an awareness day, highlighting the dangers of tobacco and vaping within the LGBTQ plus community. So what does that look like? What does that look like? So we want to layer this component in. So we're going to feature some data on LGBTQ plus disparities. And let's say you start this event with a brief presentation showing research on how tobacco use amongst LGBTQ rates are higher, include some examples of targeted advertising by tobacco companies and how they use rainbow imagery and pride-related themes to market to this group. You want to engage your GSAs in this activity design. Peer-led is always going to give you more bang for your buck. And so they can host a student-led workshop where members of the GSA focus on shared healthy coping strategy, or maybe teaching folks how to journal or do meditation. You can organize a poster making session with the GSA to create some counter campaign messaging. Like, for example, a vape-free is self-care. And then provide inclusive cessation resources. So we're setting up some resource booths with flyers and cessation programs tailored for our LGBTQ plus individuals, and include information on anonymous supports like text lines or online groups that affirm LGBTQ plus identities. And then if you have at your disposal, I would definitely want to reach out and partner with any LGBTQ plus health organizations. And so see if they can also drop in, do some counseling sessions, or also come onto your campus and support this day, this inclusive day of, once again, highlighting the dangers of tobacco and vaping within the LGBTQ plus community. So let's take a look at some general activities that you can do, and we're going to walk through another example. So we're going to focus on the African American and Black students for this example. And here are 5 for you. You could launch a district-wide anti-vaping campaign with slogans that reflect Black pride. You can host a mental awareness event focused on the connection between racial stress and substance use. You can analyze tobacco ads targeting Black communities, especially menthol products. Organize a photo voice project, which we'll talk about, or you'll get to explore shortly. Project documenting tobacco's presence within Black neighborhoods, and partner with local community-based organizations for tobacco-free events and resource distribution. So let's walk through one, right? Because those are just titles and examples. But what does it look like, right? How do I do this? Whoops, excuse me, I got ahead of myself. So let's focus on one of them. And we're going to say we want to create a podcast episode discussing the impact of tobacco on African American health. That is the topic of our podcast. In this podcast, it'll be an episode highlighting the challenges caused by tobacco use within Black communities, offering the listeners insights and, of course, practical solutions for change. And then we give you some basic materials that you might need, right, to get your podcast going. Clearly, there's going to be some more materials you might need as you start to plan this event, but we wanted to make sure you had at least a foundation within a guide so that you could at least get off the ground running. And then there's some step-by-step instructions and some time frames. So this might take you anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks. And this could be an ongoing where you could then branch this podcast out into all of your health disparity groups, tackling all kinds of subject matter. So we definitely want to recruit some guest speakers for each episode. We need to start developing our scripts. We're recording and editing these episodes, and we're promoting this podcast, right, on all of our social media platforms at our school. And then we're gathering feedback and planning for our future episodes. And we're also touching on so many educational standards at the same time. Some quick checklists for you as well, and some of these guides that you're about to have a chance to take a look at. And clearly, as you are starting to plan, you can expand upon your checklist as well. And then some quick tips for success, right? So we could host a listening party to promote the episode, or we could collaborate with our media classes, and they can help us out with putting these podcasts together. So then we can walk through each health disparity group and giving you some examples based upon those general activities that you saw earlier on that slide prior. So in this particular case, you can destruct how the tobacco industry exploits native imagery. You could organize a guest speaker event featuring elders discussing traditional tobacco versus commercial tobacco. For Latino Hispanic students, we can develop bilingual anti-vaping campaigns for students and communities. We can invite health experts to present culturally relevant cessation strategies. And don't worry, you're going to get a chance in a moment to explore all of these activities and see which ones that you might be able to take back to your school sites and implement. With our Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander students, you could create anti-vape campaigns rooted in Hawaiian values and culture. Host a beach cleanup day to raise awareness about tobacco waste. And then invite cultural leaders, of course, to speak about health and traditional practices. For our LGBTQ plus students, you can host, as we mentioned before, that Red Ribbon Week event focused on identity, stress, and healthy coping. We can conduct a photo voice project capturing LGBTQ plus experiences with tobacco. For our foster youth, we can analyze tobacco ads targeting vulnerable youth populations. Invite alumni to our school sites to talk about success stories in quitting tobacco and or vaping products. Our students experiencing homelessness, we can analyze again how ads target homeless youth. We can host events providing free cessation resources. And of course, develop outreach campaigns for shelters. For our students in our non-traditional schools, we can host wellness days for focusing on mental health, create targeting anti-vaping campaigns, and invite guest speakers with relatable experiences. For our rural communities, we can do some local radio PSA programs where we partner with rural radio stations to broadcast anti-tobacco vaping messages. We can start working with our 4-H or our FFA groups. For those of you who may not be familiar with 4-H, it's head, heart, hands, and health. And we can engage with our students who are agricultural focused students and organizations to help us lead in these health initiatives. With our low-income communities, we can do mobile health resource vans in our neighborhoods, provide on-the-spot cessation support and health screenings where they are most needed. Now, what we've done with those activities is taken the general list and sort of tailored them by adding that layer or layering in that health disparity component. So what we're going to do now is a exercise where you all will be able to go and explore within some breakout rooms some of the how-to guides for these activities and more activities that were not mentioned. So it's about 16 activities to 18 activities for each group that we just discussed. And so there's some guidance on the screen for you now. So you're going to access the resources by clicking the link to the General Health Disparities activity folder, which will be placed in the chat in just a moment. You will then see all of the health disparity categories listed in folders, separated in folders. Click the folder that most interests you. And then think about how that implementation process might come to fruition. How can you apply this chosen activity at your school? And then identify some assemblies, some awareness days that are already occurring that maybe this event or activity could layer into. And then share your ideas and your takeaways with each other within your breakout space. And then not this time around, but on the second time, be ready to share out anything that you learned, you want to try, you're excited about, maybe you want to investigate, explore further, bring back to your youth groups and talk it over with them. And so with that being said, Mark, if you could open up the breakout, we're going to push you into breakout rooms and you should be able to click the link and go into your folders. And we're going to give you about 7 minutes, I think, yeah, 7 minutes to explore this first group of folders with just general activities for the health disparity groups. But then stay tuned because we're going to do some outside the box activities, which is really exciting. And I look forward to sharing those with you very shortly. So I'll see you all in 7 minutes.
No warning.
Hey, welcome back. I know those breakout rooms, you could be in some great conversation. All of a sudden, you got to come on back to the main space. So happy everyone is joining us back here. Seems like everyone has returned. So we'll go ahead and keep on trucking. So I hope you had a moment, enough time to kind of just look at general activities that many of you are already doing, but starting to think now, how do I layer in my health disparity group? And now let's have some fun, right? Here we go. We're going to have fun this afternoon. And we're going to start looking at activities, but sort of like a different manner. And what I mean by that is we've kind of categorized activities for you to start thinking about doing in and around these four categories you see listed here. Those being activities that evolve around creative arts and expression, technology and innovation, community engagement and service, and wellness, mindfulness, and leadership. So maybe you're like, oh, I'm not a tech person. I don't know if I want to dive into that, but I can definitely do some creative stuff. Then creative arts and expression will be the folder you're going to want to dive into shortly. Or maybe it's the other way around. I don't want to be a performer. I don't want to get on stage or do anything like that with the kiddos. I'd rather build something or do something tech savvy. Then you're going to want to dive into the technology and innovation. So really excited to share some of these activities out with all of you. And let's talk about what some of those could possibly look like. So here are some few examples of the list from the creative arts and expression. You can host a tobacco-free graffiti jam. You can organize health-themed fashion shows, which we're going to talk about in a moment. I'm really excited about that one. Of course, you got your spoken poetry word slam. We can do some kind of theater performances, photography gallery, creative writing contests, DIY do-it-yourself sticker packs. And of course, for you acting folk out there, you can do some improv comedy night promoting a tobacco-free lifestyle. What does that look like though? How do you build one of these out per se? So let's take a look at the health themed fashion show with student designs, right? And so in this particular case, you would have a health themed fashion show. It's going to allow the students to promote healthy living. This event is going to combine a lot of creativity, wellness, and it's going to inspire our participants and spectators to embrace positive health messages. Some simple materials you'll need. Of course, you need some stage, some sound. Lighting should be on there too, right? Flyers, registration, sewing materials if needed, judging and scoring sheets, and some prizes for your participants, perhaps. And then what does that look like step by step wise? We need to recruit some student designers and some models. We need to develop an event program with some music, some fun music to go along with the runway show. And then the part I like a lot about this is in between, I'm getting ahead of myself. Promote the fashion show across the school and social media accounts. We're going to facilitate the show and ensure some smooth transitions. And we got to, of course, recognize everybody who's involved. I'm thinking this will take you probably about 4 to 6 weeks with the event running 2 to 3 hours. A basic checklist for things you might need. Clearly, when you start planning the event, you can add on to this checklist and tailor it to your needs. And then a couple of tips for success. We can partner with some local businesses, some local community-based partner or organizations. And then use this event to promote positive body and wellness. Did I skip over? Hold on. There was a part I wanted to share. That's it. So in between all of your segments, you're including short little talks on health topics between your segments. I just think that's so fun and neat to maybe try out with youth. And I really think when you bounce these kinds of ideas off youth groups, they're going to start maybe going down a spiral or a rabbit hole, if you will, of ideas, which you two can both work together on building out an activity that'll hopefully become peer-led, right? Because that would be the ending goal. All right, so let's talk quickly about technology and innovation. You could start that YouTube channel. talking about those wellness challenges. You could have sort of design a virtual escape room. We talked about podcast series earlier. We could have a meme competition on anti-vape themes. We could possibly do an interactive webinar with some health experts, local health experts, or maybe even testimonials from students. When it comes to community engagement and services, we could do maybe a tobacco-free family fun run. We could have partner with some local businesses for maybe a discount campaign for our tobacco-free students who take a tobacco-free pledge this year. We could get some pets involved. Everybody loves animals, I hope, and do maybe a tobacco-free pet walk of some sort. These things could maybe even turn into a fundraiser for your Tupe groups or your Friday Night Live groups you may have, or any club that might want to take on one of these activities. Let's talk some wellness, mindfulness, and leadership. We could do a mindfulness scavenger hunt on campus, or perhaps maybe at a local park. We could look at a random acts of kindness campaign throughout our school. Maybe a sunrise yoga session for you early risers out there. And a mindful eating workshop and connecting nutrition and also some of the habits we have in our day-to-day routines in our lives. Okay, so let's do it one more time. This time we're going to send you to the breakout rooms, but you're going to get a chance to explore the outside the box activities. There should be about 50 activities, which we did not explore 50 for each category for you to look at. So I highly recommend you look at the list once you're there in the folder. Find a few you want to take a deeper dive into, and then scroll down to where that activity is located. And then have the same kind of conversations with yourself and your community within your breakout room, which is, how am I going to do this? How am I going to plan this? What are the ideas that students may bring to the table? And then, of course, we want to have you come back and talk to us and share maybe something you learned, maybe something you want to try or explore further. So I will give us about, let's do 8 minutes for this breakout session, since there are a ton of more activities for you to take a look at. And if you get bored in one folder, feel free to click into another one. And we'll see you all back in about 10 minutes. Perfect. I hope that you were able to find a couple of activities at least that maybe resonated with you, or you think will resonate with your youth groups that you have access to on your campuses. Does anybody want to share out, come off mute, and maybe just share out an activity that they thought might be interesting or may want to try out? Or you're welcome to utilize the chat feature as well.
Derek, I just think these are just it's a really great, all of them are great lists. It's hard to just choose one, but it would be great just to get it in the hands of our student groups so that they can go through it and see which ones they feel comfortable and excited about.
Yeah, I'm happy you brought that up. That's really kind of was the essence of why this was put together, is get those lists in front of your youth groups and see what gets them jazzed up and excited to participate and actively engage in this health disparity Tupe work, right? So thank you for sharing that. We have just a few more slides to go through, so definitely want to honor your time, and we're going to go ahead and move forward. I appreciate you taking some time to explore those activities, and I hope that those resources will be useful for you. Okay, so maybe you didn't like a single one of those, and you were like, you know what, it's not there. I need to figure this out. I do not know what to do. Have you thought about possibly using artificial intelligence as well to assist you in guiding you as a thought partner and bouncing off some ideas. Here are 3 main AI platforms that I'm aware of. Google Gemini, formerly known as Bard. You have ChatGPT and Microsoft Copilot. I share this with you because I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a guide for when you're asking any of these platforms to assist you with creating or building something that you as the professional can go and do further research on as you're bouncing back and forth. And so when you're thinking about developing a prompt for maybe, let's say, like a how-to guide, you want to be thinking about what's the topic to task, who's the audience, what are the key steps or sections I want the AI to think about, and then what's the tone or style I want them to think about, and are there any little bells and whistles you want the AI to come up with, like a checklist or some examples or any kind of tips. If you're trying to build, say, a lesson plan for your rollout teachers, or you want to embellish or figure out how to make a lesson plan that you already have even more engaging with, I say, a supplemental activity, you might look at also putting together a prompt like this, where you have the topic or focus area. So what's the lesson you're going to cover, the grade level, the audience, what's the learning objective you want, what are the materials that you want, and any agenda or timing that you want to be listed as well, and the outcomes and any kind of assessment piece. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, any extras. Do you need any handouts, discussion prompts, any extension activities? And then what does a prompt possibly look like? So here's for a how-to guide, and here's for a lesson plan. You can take, interchange, add to, embellish. You can get as granular as you want to really bounce back and forth with the AI to hone in on what it is you're trying to develop in partnership. And then I thought I might just show you what gets spit out. So here's a 1 to 2 page lesson for vaping presentation for 6th through 8th graders, 45 to 60 minutes in length. And I used that same prompt we just talked about. I said, create a 1 to 2 page lesson plan on vaping prevention for 6th through 8th graders. Include for me objectives, engaging activity, materials needed, and a reflection section. You could add all kinds of things to meet your needs. So here are the lesson objectives and the materials that I will need that was populated, any engaging activity that I want to do, the reflection piece, and the wrap up, and giving me time limits for each one. And our assessment. We're going to do some participation in group discussion activities and completion of a personal message prompting a vape-free lifestyle. Now, once it's pushed this out for you, if that's not enough and you need more information, you can always continue to ask for more examples or details or talking points for what has been delivered to you through the AI platform. And then if you want to make sure or check out any like resources too at the same time, when building this, I thought, well, I think I kind of want to connect this with some California standards too. That would be very important. So automatically, ChatGPT is letting me know 5 places that it looked at to find out information for me in creating or attaching standards to this activity, so that me, the professional, can go in and verify, make sure everything is correct. And then it lists some standards for me. And you'll notice at the bottom here, it shows me 3 places, again, where it searched for that information, so that I can go and do a deeper dive too and make sure that everything is correct. Just a couple more standards there. I just thought that might be helpful in the instance that you're like, I still need to figure out some more. I need some more steps, or I need some more ideas or some best practices to do in and around this work. So let's talk some quick resources for you. As always, you can go to the Story of Inequity put out by the Undo campaign. I'm placing that link for you in the chat. This goes into detail and has tailored materials and resources for you to explore around many of the health disparity populations that we've discussed today to assist you with some of your activity development and making these activities even more robust. You see here is an example of American Indian. When you were to click in there, will give you all types of articles, resources, websites to explore. And then, of course, you're going to get all the Google stuff and the folders that you looked at today. Let's wrap up today with some hurdles, solutions, and food for thought. So we're always going to have some stigma, and we're going to need to be resilient, right? As we're overcoming cultural, social, or personal resistance to some of our prevention efforts. We're going to have resource limitation. There's going to be limited time, funding, or staffing to make these activities seem seamless and consistent in the delivery of how we're pushing these out to our youth or our community partners. There's always going to be engaging hard to reach groups, right? In these challenging and reaching marginalized youth and family effectively. And sustaining momentum, right? We have to stay energized. So ensuring long-term impact and engagement beyond just our initial efforts. So how are these activities getting more robust? How are they continually rolling out and building upon each other as we are putting our mark on our programming at our school sites? Solutions and opportunities. So collaborative partnerships to these hurdles, right? We need to leverage our community and school partnerships to sharing of the resources. Dive into your youth-led initiatives. Really let the students lead this work. I think that's how we really steer clear from a lot of what could be considered stigma, right? So engage our student leaders to build the trust and the relevance in the activities that you're doing. Always making data-driven adjustments. We're getting our feedback. We're doing our surveys. We are tracking these activities. If you're a TUPE grantee in our STARS system. And then adaptability. We need to be open to changing our approaches based upon our audience's needs. And we're constantly looking for emerging trends. These products are ever changing, and we need to be on the cutting edge of changing up our activities to meet these new emerging trends. Yes, it is almost dinner time, but not just yet. So food for thought, equity and access, right? Are our strategies truly accessible and inclusive for all of our students? Are they sustainable? What steps can we take to ensure that these are going to stick around for the long term? Are we being innovative? How can we think outside the box? I think we saw that a little bit today with some of these activities. They don't need to just be the regular ones that we're always doing each year. We can have some fun and get creative with some of these activities, but also still selling the message and campaigning and advocating for our message. And then the impact. What small but impactful actions are we taking to create this lasting change? Real quick, we have some trainings coming up, webinars and all kinds of great stuff on our TUPE Training Hub. So definitely bounce on over there if you haven't done so. I could place that link for you in the chat. If you haven't been to our training hub, thank you, Mark, to our training hub in a while, definitely want to check it out. We're always updating our training hub with new trainings or asynchronous courses that you can do or share out with your staff. Some that are right around the corner are going to be our Beyond Red Ribbon Week, taking place November 7th from 2 to 4 virtually. We have our Stanford Tobacco Prevention Toolkit, how to navigate it and roll it out, and some different ways you can do that. This is an in-person training right here at Lakeland, taking place November 5th, 2024 from 8 to 1 p.m. And then our virtual brief intervention happening November 19th and 20th from 8:30 to 12:30 p.m. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for carving out some for us. We appreciate it. We hope that you walk away this afternoon really inspired, excited to share some of these activities with your youth groups on campus or your leadership on campus, and get excited and re-energized about the amazing TUPE work and health disparity work you may be undertaking within your respective part of the Los Angeles County or any part of California for that matter. And I ask that you take our brief survey. It's only like 6 or 7 questions. It'll go really fast and it'll help me to gear up more trainings and see if there are any gaps that we may have that we can fill in for you in upcoming webinars or trainings that we are currently developing. Thank you so much. And with that being said, I'm going to stick around on the call and enjoy the rest of your day.